It's time for another Dice Tower review with the Board Game Knights.
Hello and welcome, we're the Board Game Knights. I'm Sam Gillespie.
I'm Christoph Schrader.
I'm Jessica James.
And with the release of the final DLC pack for the video game Bioshock Infinite, we thought we'd do a review of its board game, The Siege of Columbia. Now Jess, have you played the video game?
No.
Have you played the board game?
No.
Be gone! Christoph, have you played the video game?
No, actually.
No, that'll have to do. Alright, let's go do this review. So Christoph, have you played the video game?
No, but I have played the board game.
Alright, well I've played both the video game and the board game.
So we can get a contrasting view going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now, it seems to be that this is part of a larger trend of video games creating board games to coincide with releases.
Indeed.
And this is actually a very solid title, so it's a good trend to start seeing.
Yeah, definitely. It's a 2 to 4 player game designed by Isaac Vega and is published by Plaid Hat Games.
So, Bioshock Infinite Siege of Columbia is set in the city of Columbia, which is where Bioshock Infinite, the video game, takes place, which is a flying city in the sky, which has two main factions vying for power. You have the Founders, who are a very conservative and somewhat racist society, and you have the Rebels, who are trying to fight racism. They're sort of like freedom fighters in this game.
Indeed. The gameplay is kind of Risk-esque. It's mainly based around area control as a mechanic, and you resolve the combat using dice rolls.
Yes, very good. At the start of every round, each player will receive 5 cards which represent different things from the Bioshock Infinite universe. Now, these are the primary mechanic of the game because each of these cards can be used for 3 different things. They can be used for combat, for influence and voting, or for generating money. And every time you use these, you can only use them for one of those things, so you need to use them very carefully.
And at the start of every round when it comes to voting, players are given the option to vote for a particular new law which will change the rules of the game.
Now these rules can actually benefit one player over another player, so you want to make sure that you always have a few cards that you can put in to vote for something. Whoever spends the most amount of influence in the voting phase gets the first player token, and then can spend as many cards as they want to generate income. They can then spend that income to build structures or to train additional units to add to their army.
During a player's turn, their movement phase can consist of using 4 units to move 1 space, or they can take the riskier option and move along the skyline. Now this may end up destroying their units, but the payoff is massive if successful.
Because you can move your units anywhere on the map, provided that you continually be lucky. Once the movement phase is completed, all combat then gets resolved. And what happens is you take the number of dice corresponding to what units are available in that particular square, and each player can then play as many of these cards as they want to try and buff their side. In the case of a tie, the defender wins. And the losing player has to lose 1 unit, and the rest of the troops are returned to their stronghold.
During every round, new public objectives are released. Now players may claim one of these public objectives every round to score additional victory points.
Yep. You can also claim victory points by controlling large areas of the board, and the first player to score 10 victory points wins the game. So as a fan of the video game, I really like this board game. It really brought all the theme from that video game. The skylines, for instance, adding the primary mechanic of movement adds just so much, because that was a big thing in the Bioshock Infinite, because you could zip around these maps, and that was absolutely great to see them implemented in this board game. What do you think of the board game, having no experience?
Yeah, well, I haven't played the video game, so this was entirely new for me. I have wanted to play the Bioshock video game for a while now.
Yeah.
So playing the board game was an interesting experience. I did enjoy it, and it actually made me want to go play the video game. And
Yes.
if that's what they set out to do, whoever designed this game, they totally succeeded.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it was good fun. My only thing was that I did have some very bad luck with the dice rolls early on.
Yes.
And because of that, I did fall behind in terms of how many units I had on the board.
Yeah.
But there is a nice little mechanic where Booker, the little character that runs around here, he ends up voting for you, in favour for you, every time there's a new law to vote on.
Exactly. So if you're coming behind, you can sort of get a lucky vote in, and you can get a big advantage there.
I lost my main unit, this blimp here, and I managed to get it back the very next turn, luckily, which is nice.
Yeah, it was very nice. One thing we didn't really cover in our explanation was this Booker and Elizabeth thing, and what happens basically is Booker will move to random spots every turn, and may or may not attack the people there, and he's very, very powerful.
You do not want to get attacked by Booker.
Booker is the main character from the video game, so he's obviously very powerful, and Elizabeth is the chick that he tries to rescue.
He rolls 3 dice?
3 red dice,
and they all have, like, the minimum number is 3, and it goes to 8.
And
so
most of the other dice aren't anywhere near as powerful as that, so he
I just rolled 10 with 2.
Yeah, exactly. So he's very powerful, and he moves around. So he's a bit of a loose cannon element. And now the thing is that this mechanic I actually kind of don't especially like, because it means that you can have a bunch of units in one square that you're trying to move into the enemy territory. And then he comes in and you lose all of them. They have to go back to their stronghold.
So it's too random?
I think that it's just that little bit too random for me.
Fair enough.
That being said, you can get bonus victory points by defeating Booker if the right victory point cards are out. So you might have a build that's designed specifically to take out Booker, and then your victory points don't
It
come
might
through.
be too random, but perhaps that suits the theme. I mean,
Yeah, I can see it. I can see that. There is definitely a lot of randomness, because there's also these Elizabeth cards here, which there's 3 of them that come with the game, and they have random effects that happen throughout the game.
every game you'll choose a different one.
Yep. And like again, that's pretty fine, but there is. This game is designed to be this very much a strategic aspect where you're moving troops around trying to take territories and achieve objectives, and this randomness to it just seems a little bit much like pandering to the theme rather than trying to build on the original mechanics.
Which if you ask me, is fine.
I think that's probably the best way to approach it, because if you're doing a board game based on a video game, you kind of want it to be very thematic.
It has to belong with the universe and suit the theme. So
Exactly.
It is beholden to that rather than the mechanics first.
Yes.
The game is coming first in this instance. Yes.
And another thing about the game that I just went a little bit about was this this upgrade sheet, because when you win combats or take first player or pay money for upgrades or win a combat, you can upgrade your cards. You can make them better at combat or better at influence, or better give you more money per turn, and you can also unlock their special abilities, and some of those special abilities are nice, but ultimately this just means that all your cards are a lot more useless at the start of the game and get slightly better, because there's another thing whereby your opponent can only ever have 3 more upgrades than you, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'd say to focus on upgrading your units will not really get you much further ahead than the other player if you were to not focus on it.
The thing is that if you were able to get ahead with it, you should be able to have as many upgrades as you like. I understand that they've done that so that one player doesn't get too far ahead, but I mean, you're playing a area to control strategy war game. Players are allowed to get ahead, so I just find like this upgrade thing is completely unnecessary, and it means that all of those really nice abilities are going, oh wow, that's really great. No, can't use them in the first 3 or 4 rounds.
But that's not to say we didn't like the game.
No, absolutely not. It's a very good game, but it's just these little bits on the side that I think just left a little bit of a sour taste, I think.
Indeed. I think we're going to have to play this game with Jess as well, just
Absolutely.
To bring her into it.
There is also an interesting 4-player variant where 2 players play as founders and 2 players play as the...
so it's a cooperative, 2v2.
Yeah, as the rebels. We haven't actually tried that one out yet, but I imagine it would slow the game down to a
Yeah,
very
indeed.
halt.
It was about an hour to an hour and a half for a 2-player game.
Yeah, I'm sure you could get that time down a lot more once you have a bit more experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, it is a good game, but you have to be like quite a big fan, I think, of this sort of style, and if you're a fan of Bioshock Infinite, you'll probably absolutely love this game.
That said, I've never been exposed to this universe before. It was imaginative, it was interesting, it's very colourful, I liked it.
Yes, all the pieces are actually fantastic quality, as you have with any
The
Plaid Hat
aesthetics
game.
of the game are excellent. The board is actually quite small.
Yeah. Another thing I really like is these objective cards actually have this sort of faded look to it, and that's not just our copy of it, that's just how they look, so they have that sort of oldie time feel, which is what they try to have in the video game. So that's quite a nice
It's kind of
thing.
steampunk, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is steampunk. It's very good.
Not kinda, it is.
Well, yeah. Okay, it is steampunk.
Well, that's what you said.
Shut up, Krista.
We also hope that you go play this game if you've only played the video game before. It keeps doing the trend that we like seeing now of video games being done as board games.
Absolutely. This has been the Board Game Nights here at the Dice Tower.
Where did Jess go?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Jess, there you are.
Hello. Things I've seen. So many tigers.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.